Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, feds, degenerates, furries. This is Mild's Culture Plate. I'm your host, Mild Kevin Miles. Is there something wrong with my video? I'm not seeing it showing up on YouTube. There I am. Okay. So yes, welcome to Mild's Culture Plate. I am your host, Mild Kevin Miles. Today is Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. It's Christmas time, y'all. In fact, my next show will be on Christmas Eve. I gotta think about whether or not that's gonna be possible, but I may need to do an early stream that day. Or I may need to do it. I may need to rain check y'all for Monday. I will keep you posted. If you follow me at mild.locals.com or on Twitter at nerfmild or on Facebook, the link's down in the description. I don't have a fancy tag for Facebook. The link's down in the description. Follow me on YouTube, Rumble, Locals, Twitter. Yeah, and Facebook. So yeah, mild.locals.com. I will keep you updated on when I will be streaming later this week. Folks, it's been a crazy day. So I had planned on digging into the Yoel Roth stuff. I promised y'all I would do that. I'm a bad host. I'm a bad show host. I have not done the research on Yoel Roth. There are a couple of Twitter threads out there. I know I'm going to find them. I'm going to dig them out, and I'm going to put them on this show. However, something very important happened today. I ran into the trial streams for the Kari Lake versus Maricopa County, Arizona, on the election issues stuff. I'm not sure how much of this I can get into on Twitter, or on YouTube, but YOLO, I'm going to try it. I'm going to play some clips from the trial today, and we'll see what's what. We'll see what's allowed. Our whiskey of the evening, or my whiskey of the evening, is going to be Angel's Envy. So let's go ahead and pour us a glass. Oh, yeah. I had actually intended to have some Jefferson's Ocean here tonight. However, something keeps happening every time I find a decently priced bottle of Jefferson's Ocean. I keep seeing it for $65 at places like Sam's Club. And then I don't have time to go get the guy with the key to unlock the liquor cabinet at the Sam's Club. So then I try to go back a couple days later after work to find out it's been discontinued at Sam's Club and they no longer have any bottles. So fun times. And then I found it at another liquor store, same kind of thing. I went to the liquor store to get one thing, didn't really have time. Came back, no longer had Jefferson's Ocean. So that's coming. I will be getting myself a bottle of Jefferson's Ocean to review here on stream. But for tonight, we're going back to the Angel's Envy. Good stuff. Oh, good stuff. Anyway, so yes, we're going to be covering the shenanigans around the Arizona election in Maricopa County and the happenings from the court case today through clipped videos on Drew Hernandez's Twitter feed. And we'll also be covering, yes, I haven't forgotten, we've been covering the Twitter files. We're up to batch 7 and 8. which are heavy on the FBI and the federal government's involvement in Twitter. So we'll be doing a lot of that. Yeah. So let's dive right on into it, I guess. One thing I did want to cover, headline news today, your federal government in the United States, we're sending another $8 billion to Ukraine with the possibility of another $2 billion being attached to the spending bill that's right now being ramped through Congress. So while you folks are paying more for things like whiskey and, food, they say inflation's going down, but come on, really? You people know if you're having a harder or easier time buying your necessities for life, like whiskey. Anyway, so there's that. So let's go ahead and jump right into this election stuff. So there were about five or six witnesses on the stand today. A couple of them, there weren't really spicy stuff. But the first, I tuned in right about my own lunchtime. I don't know what happened before that, but I managed to catch this next video happening in real time. So let's go ahead and play that for you folks.
So you don't believe?
So, but I guess before we get into it, I guess I should tell you that this court case is about inconsistencies in what happened that day, the date of the election, and subsequent days of counting votes. Anyway, long story short, there were long lines outside polling centers, and eventually it was revealed that there were problems with tabulators. This person here you see on the screen, I forget his name. Let's go back to the tweet here. Scott Jarrett, right, reveals that part of the problem was they were legally printing ballots on demand at the polling locations. Now, they had specialized printers that were supposed to do this. They were hooked up to specialized computers that had specialized files that were from specialized networks. All the settings were already pre-made, already there. And what was testified to, you see this? So the ballot image was designed to be printed on a 20-inch piece of paper. For some reason, a lot of these printers were printing a 19-inch image. So if you see the dramatic difference between these two ballots in their size. The ballot on the left could not be read by the tabulators. So there were tabulator problems. And the day of the election, people were saying, well, they were taking my ballot, putting it in a separate locked box, and telling me they were going to take it across the county to count it somewhere else. There were people being told, and you'll see this throughout this court case, there were people being told, well, okay, so in Arizona, you can actually pick your polling place. You don't have to go to one specially designed for your district. So they were being told to go to another polling location. And so, I mean, personally, I feel like if I'm showing up to a place that's convenient for me, and either I'm being told that my ballot's going to go not in the tabulator, but somewhere else, or I'm being turned away to go to another location, I might not vote that day. to me, that's voter disenfranchised. Now, me, personally, I would. But I know there's a lot of folks, it's like, no, I specifically, like, my route home from work, I stop here, and I was just going to stop here and vote. I'm not going to drive 6 blocks that direction to cast a ballot, and I'm not going to wait 2 hours in your line. I'm just not going to vote. Some people might do that. So that's voter disenfranchisement. So yeah, just take a good look at how different that ballot is. So yeah, the scanner would not read the smaller ballot. So again, back to Drew Hernandez's feed from RSBN here. Let's listen to what this gentleman has to say about some of these things.
So you don't believe that what happened on November 8th was not a disruption in the election process?
I do not couch it as that.
Are you aware that Supervisor Gates came out on Election Day and said 20% of all vote centers were affected by these issues with ballots being rejected by the tabulators?
Again, we didn't have ballots rejected by tabulators. They were not being read in by tabulators, but that's not a disruption when voters still had ballots.
Okay, so you put the paper in, and it's not accepting what's on the paper. And that's not rejected, that's just not being read. Folks, government officials, lawyers, judges, they like to play fucking word games. And you're going to see that a couple more times here in this little segment. The fucking word games that the counsel for Maricopa County was playing in court today. This is one of them. This is one of the word games. Well, this isn't their counsel. This was an election official trying to tell you that 2-hour wait times aren't a disruption, and that a ballot going into a tabulator and being spit back out without being read is not being rejected. It's just not being read. Come on, folks.
Options to participate in dropping in those ballots in our secure door number 3, which is a similar process that 8 other counties use as their only option for voters to be able to return their ballots.
Yeah, Mr. Jarrett, you're not answering my question. My question isn't what other options existed for voters. My question is, would you agree that there was a disruption of at least 20% of the vote centers in Maricopa that caused delays in the voting process?
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has already answered this question as to whether he characterizes it as a disruption.
Okay, I'll overrule. If you can answer it, you may, sir.
I'm not changing my response.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at that smug fucking smile. It's not a disruption because voters had another option. Voters could put it in the third box where you don't know where the hell it's going to go. Or you could drive to another polling location. People, just that smug fucking look. He thinks he got away with something. He thinks, he literally, okay, so this isn't in front of a jury, this is in front of a judge. He really thinks that this judge is somehow gonna care. Well, I don't characterize it with that word. Come on. So after Scott Jarrett okay, I'm not seeing his name. They had this guy on who was a cybersecurity expert for Northrop Grumman, NASA. He listed like 2 other government agencies and like weapons contractors. And he's a cybersecurity expert. who was essentially sent in to investigate and audit certain things about the ballot collection and tabulation process. And let's listen to one of the things he has to say here.
You've heard previous testimony. Were you here for Mr. Jarrett's testimony?
Yes, sir, I was.
And did you hear Mr. Jarrett testify that in the November 2022 general election, a 20-inch ballot was used?
Yes, sir, I did.
Would a 19-inch ballot image projected on a 20-inch piece of paper used in the election in Maricopa for November 2022 have when it was placed into one of these vote center tabulators?
It would cause it to be rejected.
You've heard previous testimony.
See, he uses the word rejected. Rejected, not accepted, not read, not scanned, not tabulated, not added to the vote totals. Whatever you want to call it. Okay, let's go back to Drew Hernandez. Hang on, let me bring this back down for just a second. There was another video I wanted to play from this guy. Pause. Okay, bring this back up now. Make sure the volume's on.
His leg, right here in this room. Bona fide candidate for governor of the Grand Canyon State. Hundreds of thousands of voters would love to have had her as the next governor. One of them chooses not to vote in the 26 days of early voting or mail-in voting or emergency vote center voting, but chooses to show up on election day, gets a ballot from a ballot on-demand printer, and somebody either intentionally or inadvertently has hit the shrink to fit setting, and this 20-inch ballot paper comes out 19 inches. This voter fills it out. Carrie Lake, want her to be the next governor, throws it into the precinct tabulator. It comes out, goes into door number 3, goes down to McTech. The much more sensitive tabulators, according to you, it would not count it. It would then go to duplication. It would be duplicated. Then it would be tabulated. Is that your understanding of the elections in Maricopa County?
Your technical description is not possible.
I apologize. I wasn't attempting to give a technical description. I was just saying what happens based on your testimony. So you're saying in that scenario, that voter who wanted to vote for Carrie Lake would never have that vote tabulated. Is that your testimony?
My testimony is that a shrink to fit setting would rely at the application level, which would reside on the EMS, which Mr. Garrett just testified sends the print job to the printer. Therefore, it can't be accidental, as all the employees that man the EMS are trained.
Whether it's accidental or inadvertent.
I gave the two options, sir.
Please allow me to ask the question. I'll allow you to answer. Whether it's accidental or inadvertent, if the shrink to fit 19-inch ballot has to be duplicated, once it's duplicated, would it be tabulated?
So, a little backstory on what's going on here. One of the things this gentleman testified to is that he had found some unsecured duplicates that didn't have the originals attached. And if you're not familiar with the ballot duplication process, essentially what it is, if you have a problem with the ballot where it can't be counted, election officials will go side by side, have a blank ballot next to your ballot that couldn't be counted, and they will copy the answers. They'll write an identification number on the top of both, scan the new one that was originally blank, and staple them together. and they're supposed to be kept together, or at least have the identifying number to where you can correspond and find it in the appropriate place depending on the election process. He had testified that he had found duplicates without originals. So the cross-examiner here decided, well, we're going to take the thing you said about this and then ask you, well, would the vote have been counted if it had been duplicated? That's not what this guy's here to testify about. He's not here to testify about the entire ballot process. He's not here to testify about election duplication, even though he mentioned election duplication in part of his examination. Like, his issue at this point was with who had the admin access level, and they kept saying shrink to print. That's not what happened. But what he's trying to say is that the printer settings or the image settings, those are the two things that could have possibly happened to get a 19-inch ballot, is either the image settings in the computer were altered, or the printer settings were altered after the test runs. And the only way to do that is someone with admin access level who had been trained not to do that. So it had to have been an intentional act. And then the gentleman there goes on to say either on purpose or inadvertent. Going in and changing those kind of settings on something as important as a ballot printer on the day of an election, that's not something, that's not I accidentally clicked the wrong thing like I do here on mine. No, that required very specific intentional steps, is what this gentleman is testifying to. So now let's move on. The next witness was amazing. It was a lady named Heather Honey. Yes, Miss Honey. Yeah, not going to go there. But she testified to a lot of interesting stuff. Now, she's a private investigator hired by Lake's team to look into, communicate with election officials in Maricopa County, to do records requests, to do interviews with witnesses who saw things happening at election centers, polling places. And some of the things she testifies to involve a company called Runbeck, who, according to the Kari Lake campaign, should not be handling elections on behalf of the state of Arizona, but they tend to be an election. It sounds like they're like an election logistics company. They were picking up ballots from post offices, bringing them to warehouses, putting things together. And so what Miss Honey here is about to had testified to today was essentially that there were several problems with chain of custody, that drop boxes, there were certain forms they were supposed to be using when picking up ballots at the drop boxes that were used every day leading up to the election day for the early voting and mail-in voting. But she claims they could find no record of those same forms being filled out for the morning of the election. And anyway, so she talks about Runbeck. Let's see here. And so here's another example of the county's counselor, the attorney for the county election board here, playing another game of words with this witness.
You're not an attorney, correct? Okay. So I'm going to ask you a legal question, but you only have to answer if you have an understanding about it. If you don't have an understanding, it's perfectly fine to say, I don't know. Are you aware that under Arizona law, a ballot is not actually unlawful if it is the term that's used sometimes is harvested or ballot collection. But if somebody who is not authorized to handle it deposits it, or like what happened at Runback, if somebody brings it and inserts it into.
Okay, so real quick, what he's referring to is earlier in her testimony, she had mentioned, and the court actually has an affidavit from another witness. And again, there were some hearsay objections that got denied. So she was allowed to testify that this employee of Runbeck had told her that the employees were allowed to bring their ballots from home and insert them into the election process at the I'm calling it the warehousing, after the votes have been collected from the various polling drop-off locations and they're being aggregated, that Runbeck employees were allowed to bring their ballots from home and stuff them into the election chain at that point. And she testified that the official election guide in Arizona, that the laws they passed in Arizona says that your ballot must be presented at a valid polling location. And so this argument here now, this lawyer saying, well, that's not illegal. And so they kind of go back and forth about whether or not the term is legal or illegal. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of the video. Let's watch this again.
You're not an attorney, correct? Okay. So I'm going to ask you a legal question, but you only have to answer if you have an understanding about it. If you don't have an understanding, it's perfectly fine to say, I don't know. Are you aware that under Arizona law, a ballot is not actually unlawful if it is the term that's used sometimes is harvested or ballot collection. But if somebody who is not authorized to handle it deposits it, or like what happened at Runback, if somebody brings it and inserts it into the stream, but not into a designated authorized drop box. Are you aware that under Arizona law, that is not actually an unlawful ballot?
I think the term in the law is an invalid ballot.
Okay. Just 1 minute, Your Honor.
Mm-hmm.
No more questions. Thank you very much, Miss Honey.
Fucking wrecked. Fucking wrecked. The term is invalid ballot. You don't have a valid vote if you're inserting it at the end of the chain. It's like, oh yeah, I'm here counting the votes for the day. Oh, look at this, I got a ballot in my pocket. Let me just insert it. Oh, look, I'm going to count it. Okay, there we go. The reason this isn't allowed, the reason that's not a valid vote, is you have chain of custody. Things have to be documented. Because if you can bring one vote to the polling place, you can bring 10 votes or 100 votes to the polling place. And if you don't have the voter rolls to sign off on, if you're not signing off on the voter rolls at the polling place, if the election board's not overseeing your voter ID, that you are the one that cast that vote, if you don't have that chain of custody part of the process, then you can stuff all the ballots you want. Now, I don't, again, so one thing you need to know about this trial is they're not allowed to get into signature verification, neither side. So, again, I don't know, once these votes were at Runbeck, were the envelopes required to be signature verified after that? Possibly, probably. But again, the issue isn't necessarily with whether that's a valid person trying to cast a valid vote. It's already invalid because you didn't go through the Board of Elections. You didn't go through the government to cast that vote. Now, you may say, what's the difference between dropping it off at a drop box and inserting it between the drop box and the counting room? It all eventually goes to the same place. Well, again, that was the other part of her testimony, was that they were supposed to be filling out these forms and counting how many ballots were in these batches. And as she testified, and the last guy testified, they're supposed to be sealed with a tamper-proof seal. And yet these batches, the ones that were sealed, were being cut open and put in different batches. So there's no way to track numbers that way because they weren't being counted. Or as the last guy testified, there were just some tape. When he went to yesterday, he said he went yesterday to examine some ballots, and they were being kept in boxes, in batch boxes that weren't properly sealed. They just had tape, not tamper-proof seals. Elections are serious business, folks. And, perhaps I take it more seriously than other people, and that's entirely possible. I followed Bev Harris and some of the other election watcher activists from, what was that, 15, 20 years ago? So, shout out to our election watching activists out there. In fact, you know what? Let's go ahead. I'll try to burn through the Twitter files as quick as I can. Let's play one more video from a lawyer.
At what you personally saw at those 10 vote centers.
Well, it was.
So this gentleman was a poll, I don't want to say watcher, but he was a lawyer who went to observe what was happening at polling places on behalf of the Republican Party. He volunteered to do this, and he encountered other, poll observers, and he kind of wrote a report on it. And let's listen to a little bit of what he has to say.
Really pandemonium out there, everywhere. I was within from Fountain Hills to North Scottsdale, where my vote centers were. I started out in Fountain Hills, and immediately, there was a line. There was a line of 150 people at Fountain Hills. The tabulators were not working, and that was what I saw at. I saw the same thing happening at 6 of my 10 vote centers. There were different things happening at some of the other ones too, but 6 of them in particular were really bad.
And so you've been voting for a number of years, correct?
Yeah.
How would you characterize the events of the 2022 general election compared to other elections that you witnessed?
Oh, this was a completely different animal here. So I was a roving attorney during the primary, and there were, some minimal problems there too. But the general election.
My Pillow ad's going to get me Get me in trouble on YouTube. Let's go ahead and stop that. Anyway, the point is he was saying shit's crazy, yo. You know, he was saying that all the people he talked to, he was seeing the same thing everywhere. The first gentleman from the first clip was saying, yeah, it was only a few polling locations, that they were documenting them, advertising them on their website and on social media, and that people could go to other polling locations. And this gentleman kind of said, no, that wasn't the case, because you could go to the other polling location that wasn't listed on the website, and the same problem would be happening, and they would still have long wait times. So again, believe who you want to believe. We're going to see who the judge is going to believe. I guess tomorrow the trial is going to continue with the the defense's case. So the county of Maricopa, etc. We're going to see what they have to say. There are actually 3 defendants, and they have co-counsel. And there was actually an interesting part earlier with a later witness where they objected to each other's questions, which was quite an interesting situation. But, you know, just time after time after time, they tried to mischaracterize the testimony that was being given and play these tricks with words only to get BTFO'd, man. I mean, these witnesses were great at being like, no, that's not what I said. That's not how I characterize that. Those aren't the words I used. There was a point where they had asked Miss Honey if she had any evidence, actual evidence, aside from the 50 ballots that were inserted allegedly at Runbeck, if there were any other evidence of invalid ballots being added to the vote totals. And, you know, she tried to give a complex answer, and they're like, it's a yes or no. It's a yes or no. You don't have evidence, do you? You don't have evidence, do you? And she goes, no, I think we have lots of evidence that people were doing improper things and trying to cover it up. Sorry, just checking. Okay. Getting old notifications on my watch. Motorola, I want to say this. Here's a toast to fuck you, Motorola, because your watches fucking suck. So, let's get into the Twitter files. FBI and the Hunter Biden laptop. How the FBI intelligence community discredited factual information. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Hang on. How the FBI and intelligence community discredited factual information about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings both after and before the New York Post revealed the contents of his laptop on October 14th of 2020. He talks about Twitter files number 6, which we talked about the other day, and all the FBI deep statery involvement of Twitter. Twitter Files 7, we present evidence pointing to an organized effort by representatives of the intelligence community aimed at senior executives at news and social media companies to discredit leaked information about Biden before and after it was published. The story begins in December 2019 when a Delaware computer store owner named J.P. Mack Isaac contacts the FBI about a laptop that Hunter Biden had left with him. On December 9th, 2019, so almost a year before, 11 months before the election, the FBI issues a subpoena for and takes Hunter Biden's laptop. By August 2020, Mac Isaac still had not heard back from the FBI, even though he had discovered evidence of criminal activity. So he emails Rudy Giuliani, who was under FBI surveillance at the time. In early October, Giuliani gives it to the New York Post. Now here it is, October 2020. Shortly before 7 p.m. October 13th, Biden's lawyer, George Mesires, emails JP Mac Isaac. Hunter and Mesires had just learned from the New York Post that the story about his laptop would be published the next day. John Paul, thank you for speaking with me tonight. As I indicated, I'm a lawyer for Hunter Biden, and I appreciate you reviewing the records on this matter. Thank you, George Mesires. Fager, Drinker, Biddle, and Wreath, LLP in Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, only Hunter Biden would have Drinker, Biddle, and Wreath. Drinker, Biddle, and Wreath. I think that's what he was doing with his niece, right? Anyway, at 9:22 Eastern, FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sends 10 documents to Twitter's then head of site integrity, Yoel Roth, through Teleporter, a one-way communication channel from FBI to Twitter. Twitter folks, heads up, I'll be sending you a Teleporter link to download 10 documents. It is not spam. Please confirm receipt when you get it. Thanks. Reviewed and downloaded. Thanks from Yoel Roth. The next day, 10/14/2020, New York Post runs its explosive story revealing the business dealings of President Joe Biden's son, Hunter. Every single fact in it was accurate. Yet within hours, Twitter and other social media companies censor the Post article, preventing it from spreading and, more importantly, undermining credibility in the minds of many Americans. Why? What exactly happened? On December 2nd, in Twitter Files number 1, Matt Taibbi described the debate inside Twitter over its decision to censor a wholly accurate article. Since then, we've discovered new info that points to an organized effort by the intel community to influence Twitter and other social media platforms. First, it's important to understand that Hunter Biden earned tens of millions of dollars in contracts with foreign businesses, including ones linked to China's government, for which Hunter offered no real work. Here's an overview by investigative journalist Peter Schweitzer. I'm not going to watch this nearly 10-minute video here, but I'll catch it later, and I may give you a rundown next time. I don't know if it's even important, but I do highly suggest that if you're invested in this topic, go find Schellenberger's thread and watch this video. Yet, during all of 2020, FBI and other law enforcement agencies repeatedly primed Yoel Roth to dismiss reports of Biden's laptop as a Russian hack and leak operation. This is from a sworn declaration given by Roth in December 2020. Since 2018, I've had regular meetings with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and industry peers regarding election security. During these weekly meetings, federal law enforcement agencies communicated that they expected hack and leak operations by state actors might occur in the period shortly before the 2020 presidential election, likely in October. I was told in these meetings that the intelligence community expected that individuals associated with political campaigns would be subject to hacking attacks and that material obtained through those hacking attacks would likely be disseminated over social media platforms, including Twitter. These expectations of hack and leak operations were discussed through 2020. I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. So here is the first time we see the name Hunter Biden attached to federal government intel, to social media companies. Sworn declaration given by Roth in December 2020. So 2 months after they censored him. They did the same thing to Facebook, according to CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The FBI basically came to us and was like, hey, you should be on high alert. That's the video from the Joe Rogan podcast. Feel free to go check it out if you want. Were the FBI warnings of a Russian hack and leak attack operation relating to Hunter Biden based on any new intel? No. Through our investigators, we did not see any similar competing intrusions that had happened in 2016, admitted FBI agent Elvis Chan in November. So, were hack and dump operations discussed at these meetings or hack and leak operations? Yes, they were. Can you tell me what was discussed about them at these meetings? The context of hack and dump is what the FBI and CISA were doing to prevent hack and dump operations. So from FBI side, I think I already relayed to you that we had the Protective Voices Initiative. I can't remember the specifics, but CISA also discussed its cybersecurity awareness efforts as well as grants efforts with the state, county, local level election officials. Did anyone at these meetings tell the industry participants to expect a Russian hack and dump operation or hack and leak operation shortly before the 2020 election cycle? And then there's an objection. From my recollection, I remember the FBI warned that I or someone from the FBI warned the social media companies about the potential for a 2016 style DNC hack and dump operation. What did you say to social media companies about that? Essentially what I just told you, that there might be a Russian hack and dump operation. What I said was, although we have not seen any computer intrusions into a national level political committees or election officials or presidential candidates at this time, we ask you to remain vigilant about the potential for hack and dump operations or something to that effect. So again, they're saying that they're not saying it's Hunter, but it might be someone close to a presidential candidate. You might be seeing something that might be hacked information. So again, we didn't see any competing information, blah blah blah, or any competing intrusions to what happened in 2016. Sorry, excuse me. Did you ask them in these meetings? Not at every meeting. I believe that I asked them at some meetings. Did you warn them at these meetings that you anticipated there to be hack and dump operations, Russian-initiated hack and dump operations? Repeatedly, I would say, can you ask your question like, what do you mean repeatedly, like 100 times? Well, did you do it more than once? I did it more, yes. I warned the companies about the potential for hack and dump operations from Russians, Iranians, more than one occasion. Cannot recollect how many times. So again, he was just feeding bullshit. Indeed, Twitter executives repeatedly reported very little Russian activity. So Twitter knew that Russia wasn't doing it. September 24, 2020, Twitter told FBI it had removed 345 large inactive accounts linked to previous coordinated Russian hacking attempts. They had little reach and low follower accounts. So again, tackling the non-problem problems because you want to say there's a problem, when you could be tackling the child porn. Child porn on Twitter. Yoel Roth could have been focused on it, but instead he's hunting for low follower, low interactivity Twitter accounts that are linked to Russians, while the child porn remained. It's almost like somebody might have been into child porn, but we'll get to that when I do my deep dive into Yoel Roth. In fact, Twitter debunked false claims by journalists of foreign influence on its platform. We haven't seen any evidence to support that claim by see CBS News or NBC News reporter of foreign-controlled bots. Our review thus far shows a small-scale domestic troll effort. And this is the email to NBC. Or no, this is Elvis Chan and Yoel Roth talking about the NBC article. After the FBI asked about a WAPO story on the alleged foreign influence in a pro-Trump tweet, Twitter's Roth says, the article makes a lot of insinuations, but we saw no evidence that was the case here. And in fact, a lot of strong evidence pointing the other direction. So, Again, Elvis Chan asking Yoel Roth and Yoel Roth giving that reply. So it's not the first time Twitter's Roth has pushed back against the FBI. In January 2020, Roth resisted FBI efforts to get Twitter to share data outside of the normal search warrant process. So, again, the one fucking halfway decent thing Yoel Roth may have ever done. A few years ago, Twitter said they'd no longer provide their data to feed members of the intelligence community. My colleagues want to know if that policy has changed, what you'd be willing to do to change it. My colleagues are contracting with a vendor for an analytic tool to open source intelligence. Only public data. Only public data. Only public data. Only your data, viewer of this stream. If you're on Twitter, they were mining your feed. The commercial version of this tool includes a Twitter data feed. The feed was disabled because the vendor said they did not want to violate terms of service with Twitter. My colleagues are wondering if Twitter would be open to revising its terms of service to allow this vendor to continue having access to the Twitter feed. My colleagues are happy to meet in person to discuss the issue. If you'd like, regards, Elvis. As discussed, here is my suggested response. Of course, feel free to tweak, edit, but I tried to hit the major points. At this point, we don't think a call directly with your colleague at the Fort is the best path forward. As a rule, we're not able to directly discuss data licensing relationship with third parties. We also have a long-standing policy prohibiting the use of our data projects and APIs for surveillance and intelligence gathering. So he told him to go fuck himself, which is probably one of the most decent things he's ever done. Pressure had been growing. We have seen a sustained, if uncoordinated, effort by the intelligence community to push us to share more information to change our API policies. They are probing and pushing everywhere they can, including by whispering to congressional staff. And so this is Carlos Monge Jr. to Yoel Roth saying those words. Time and time again, FBI asks Twitter for evidence of foreign influence, and Twitter responds they aren't finding anything worth reporting. We haven't identified activity we typically refer to you or even flag as interesting in the foreign influence context. Despite Twitter's pushback, the FBI repeatedly requests information from Twitter that Twitter's already made clear it will not share outside of normal channels. In terms of VoIP usage, Twitter requires people to register an account to confirm an email address or phone number, and in the course of using Twitter, we may require account holders to confirm a phone number if we detect any indications of suspicious activity. Several of the phone numbers we observed with these accounts appear to be linked to VoIP phone numbers, a relatively common tactic for obtaining phone numbers for the purpose of account confirmation. As for the VPN information, so they want VoIP and VPNs. They want to know who on Twitter is running off of VoIP and VPNs. Then in July 2020, FBI's Elvis Chan arranges for a temporary top security clearance for Twitter executives so that FBI can share information about threats to elections. On August 11, 2020, FBI's Chan shares information with Twitter's Roth relating to the Russian hacking organization APT28 through the FBI secure one-way communications channel teleporter. I've got more information to share with you. You'll see an email shortly so you can download the document. Alcon, okay. I don't know who Alcon is. In advance of this week's meeting, I'm going to send you 3 documents for an FBI application called Teleporter. You'll get a link, which will expire in 24 hours. Please download the documents when you get the chance. The documents will not denote the actors, so I'm providing them here. FTIP topic, B, APT28, C, Sandworm. We'll be discussing A and B, but don't have anything additional for C at this point. And then here's a video where Yoel Roth tells a reporter that he'd been primed to think about the Russian hacking group AP28 before the news of the Hunter Biden laptop came out. When it did, it set off every single one of my hack and leap campaign alarm bells that the FBI primed me to think about. In August 2020, FBI's Chan asks Twitter, does anyone there have top secret clearance? When someone mentions Jim Baker, Chan responds, I don't know how I forgot about him. An odd claim, given that Chan's job is to monitor Twitter, who Baker worked for, not to mention that they worked together at the FBI. Who is Jim Baker? Former general counsel of the FBI, 2014 to 2018, and one of the most powerful men in the intel community. Baker's moved in and out of the government for 30 years, serving stints at CNN, Bridgewater, and Brookings. And again, general counsel of the FBI, Baker played a central role in making the case internally for an investigation of Trump. Baker wasn't the only senior FBI exec involved in the Trump investigation to go to Twitter. Don Burton, the former deputy chief of staff to FBI head James Comey, who initiated the investigation of Trump, joined Twitter in 2019 as director of strategy. As of 2020, there were so many FBI employees, Boo alumni, working at Twitter that they had to create their own Slack channels to onboard new arrivals. Efforts continued to influence Roth. Roth participated in September 2020. Roth participated in Aspen Institute table talk exercise on a potential hack and dump operation relating to Hunter Biden. Oh, imagine that! Imagine fucking that! They were doing drills on Hunter Biden leaks a month before anyone knew that Hunter Biden actually had leaks. And yet this guy couldn't sniff it out. Bullshit. The organizer was Vivian Scheller, former CEO of NPR, head of news at Twitter, former general manager of New York Times, former chief digital officer at NBC News. Attendees included Meta and Facebook's head of security policy and the top national security reporters from the Times, Washington Post, and others. Chan and Roth had set up encrypted messaging network so employees from the FBI and Twitter could communicate. They also agreed to create a virtual war room for all internet industry plus FBI and Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Then on September 15, 2020, FBI's Laura Dimlow, who heads up the Foreign Influence Task Force, and Elvis Chan request to give a classified briefing for Jim Baker without any other Twitter staff, such as Yoel Roth, present. So only for Jim Baker, not for Yoel or anyone else. They wanted to have a meeting as early as possible. October 14th, shortly after the New York Post, published its Hunter Biden laptop story, Roth says it isn't clearly violative of our hacked materials policy. We read this one before, but adds this feels a lot like a somewhat subtle leak operation. In response to Roth, Baker repeatedly insists that the Hunter Biden materials were either faked, hacked, or both, in a violation of Twitter policy. Baker does so over email and in a Google Doc on October's 14th and 15th. I'm not going to read all of that out loud here. Again, go check out this thread if you want to see the gory details. It's inconceivable Baker believed the Hunter Biden emails were faked or hacked. The New York Post had included a picture of the receipt signed by Hunter Biden and the FBI subpoena that showed that the FBI had taken possession of it. As for the FBI, it would likely have taken a few hours for it to confirm that the laptop had indeed belonged to Hunter Biden. And it only took a few days for Peter Schweitzer to prove it. And here's another 2.5 minute video from Peter Schweitzer. By 10 a.m., Twitter execs had bought into a wild hack and dump story. The suggestion from experts, which rings true, is that there was a hack that happened separately. They loaded hack materials on the laptop that magically appeared at a repair shop in Delaware. 3:38 that same day, October 14th, Baker arranges a phone conversation with Matthew J. Perry in the Office of General Counsel of the FBI. And there's a mail attachment. The influence operation persuaded Twitter execs that the Hunter Biden laptop did not come from a whistleblower. One link to a Hill article based on the Washington Post article from, and again, this is what the news does. You'll have one news agency citing another news agency, citing another news agency, and the origin of the story is nowhere to be fucking found. Like there's no actual meat. They just cite each other in a circle jerk with no actual origin of the information. So one link to a Hill article based on a WAPO article from October 15th, which falsely suggested that Giuliani's leak of the laptop had something to do with Russia. And again, here we go. Intelligence officials warned Trump that Giuliani was the target of a Russian influence campaign. Yet nobody seems to know who these intelligence influencers are who came up with this Russia story in regards to the Hunter Biden laptop. There's evidence the FBI agents have warned elected officials of foreign influence with primary goal of leaking information to the news media. This is a political dirty trick used to create the perception of impropriety. 2020, FBI gave a briefing to Senators Grassley and Johnson, claiming evidence of Russian interference into their investigation of Hunter Biden. The briefing angered the senators who said it was done to discredit their investigation. The unnecessary FBI briefing provided the Democrats and liberal media the vehicle to spread their false narrative that our work advanced Russian disinformation. Notably, then FBI General Counsel Jim Baker was investigated twice in 2017 and 2019 for leaking information to the news media. You're saying he's under criminal investigation. That's why you're not letting him answer, Meadows asked. Yes. In the end, the FBI's influence campaign aimed at execs at news media, Twitter, and other social media companies worked. They censored and discredited the Hunter Biden laptop story. By December 2020, Baker and his colleagues even sent a note of thanks to the FBI for its work. Thanks, Jim. The FBI's influence campaign may have been helped by the fact that it was paying Twitter millions of dollars for its staff's time. I'm happy to report we've collected $3,415,323 since October 2019, reports of an associate of Jim Baker in early 2021. Scale instituted a reimbursement program for our legal process response from the FBI. Prior to the start of the program, Twitter chose not to collect under the statutory right of reimbursement for the time spent processing requests from the FBI. I'm happy to report we've collected $3 million blah 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 since 2019. This money is used by LP for things like the TTR and LE law enforcement related projects, LE training, tooling, etc. The pressure from the FBI on social media platforms continues. In August 2022, Twitter execs were prepared for a meeting with the FBI whose goal was to convince us to produce more FBI emergency disclosure requests, which are essentially warrantless searches. In response to the Twitter files revelation of high-level FBI agents at Twitter, Jim Jordan said, I have concerns about whether the government was running a misinformation operation on we the people. Who's Jim Jordan here? Oh, yeah, Congressman. Anyone who reads the Twitter files, regardless of their political orientation, should share those concerns. End. Okay, Michael Schellenberger, thank you for that. We have burned through our hour. We've went long. And yet there's still a whole other thread of Twitter files. Unfortunately, I don't have time to cover them tonight. A couple things I want to mention. I am in negotiations with a few people who are not natural content creators, which I'm not a natural content creator. But here's the deal. There should be more of us out there. I don't care if I get 6 views on my videos. Information's getting spread. People are enjoying content. That's all I care about. That's all I care about. I come here, I do this, I want to have a hobby. I want to talk to people. I want to meet people. I want to meet people online. So if you're seeing this video, please leave me a comment down below. It looked like YouTube ended my stream, but it didn't. Leave me a comment down below. Talk to me. Tell me what you want. Tell me what I could do for you. Tell me the things you don't like about my channel. If you do like my channel, if you liked this video, if you liked my coverage of the Maricopa trial today, and I will try maybe in the next couple of days, because I really would like to do a catch-up stream on the Twitter Files Part 8 here that really digs even deeper into the intelligence community and Defense Department and their operations in social media. I really want to cover tomorrow in the Maricopa County trial. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. I'm going to try to squeeze in an extra video in the next couple days. It might be hard with the Christmas break. Like I said, I may have to move something to Monday. Which, you know, Monday would be a good day to do what I planned on doing Saturday. And I could try either Friday or Saturday to squeeze in a catch-up video for the Twitter Files and the Maricopa trial. So, yeah, keep your eye on my mild.locals.com. I'll try to keep you a heads up on there. Share this video off platform. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. You know, find yourself coming back for a future video. Find yourself somewhere in time and space. Find yourself loving one another, taking care of taking care of each other. So I'm going to give a cheers to everybody out there who's not starting drama. Give a cheers to everyone who's not trying to get people banned on Discord. Shout out to everybody who just living from day to day, and Merry Christmas, everybody. Love you. So, until next time, don't get any on you. And if you do, rub that shit in real good. Oh, shit. You know what? Let me finish my shit in full screen here. Take care, everybody. Love you. Don't get any on you. Catch you either Friday or Saturday. Till then, peace. Yeah.